Hi, and welcome to The Working Songwriter, the show where today's best songwriters come to talk shop. I'm your host, Joe Pug. Each episode here, we host a distinguished guest, and we ask them to go deep on their inspiration, on their process, on the general ups and downs of making a life in music. So, whether you're a grizzled veteran, focusing less on music than you are on merchandise e-commerce, or else a scrappy upstart, focusing entirely on music with an online store that looks like it was built on a GeoCities page, this is your show. Because ultimately, it is what every writer seeks most, an ironclad excuse to put off actually writing. Hey everybody, it's the third Friday of October 2021, and I thank you for joining us. This week's show is brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built by musicians and for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website for your music. I'm old enough to remember when you had to pay somebody called a web developer to get a website made, and it would always be some guy named Armando who drove a Subaru Sidekick with a WWE spare tire cover and who was always trying to sell you weed that he called hydro, but that actually just looked like moss. And old Armando would charge you about $1,000 for a website that would be obsolete in 6 months. But it's the future now, you guys. That's not how it works anymore. We're allowed to have nice things now. One of those nice things is Bandzoogle. Bandzoogle powers the websites of tens of thousands of musicians around the world, from weekend warriors to Grammy winners. All the features you need for a professional website are already built in: hosting and a custom domain name, dozens of fully customizable design templates, tools to sell your music, and merch commission-free. The Working Songwriter podcast listeners can go to bandzoogle.com to try it for free for 30 days. Use the promo code TWS, the initials of our show, TWS, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. If you'd like to hear some of my music live in the coming weeks, every Sunday night, every single Sunday night, you can find me over on YouTube at 9 p.m. Eastern for Sunday Songs. That's a live stream. I'm playing tunes live. I'm taking requests from the live chat. I'm taking questions from the live chat. It's a really fun, really interactive experience. I think that we're building something of a community over there on Sunday nights, including many people who are listeners to this podcast. So come on over and be a part of it. Go to YouTube and search for Joe Pug, or go to joepugmusic.com and click on the live stream tab. Finally, if you enjoy this podcast, if you'd like to help it remain a viable endeavor for me, here's a couple things that you could do to help. First, you could become a supporter of the show over at Patreon. Patreon is a platform that allows you to directly support creative endeavors that you find meaningful. You just head to their site, Patreon. You search for The Working Songwriter, or you search for my name. Then you sign up to kick in a few bucks every month for the show. Think of it as a voluntary subscription, a subscription that you don't have to pay for, but that you choose to pay for just because you dig the show and because you won't miss a few bucks at the end of the month. If just 1% of our listenership would kick in the price of a cup of coffee every month, it would make an immense difference. So thank you to everyone who's taken the time and effort to do that. I really appreciate you. And if you're not in a place where you can contribute that way, there's still a few ways that you could help out the show for free. First, you could leave us a rating in the iTunes store, or second, you could simply tell a friend about the show. Spread the word to someone who you think might dig it. The simple math on those two things is that they will help me much more than they will be a pain in the ass for you. Okay, I'll end all the harassment there. I really hope that you dig this week's episode. Our guest this week hails from Texas and got her start playing in several highly regarded roots music outfits before launching her own solo career. Jamie Lin Wilson got her start playing music in college, where she played with a band called the Gougers. She then went on to be a founding member of the Trishas, a group of 4 independent artists in Austin, Texas, who went on to tour with Todd Snyder, the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and many others. As a solo artist, Jamie has toured with Turnpike Troubadours, Wade Bowen, Ray Wiley Hubbard, Jack Ingram, and many others. Paste Magazine considered her 2018 album, Jumping Over Rocks, to be one of their favorites of the year, and has said that she has quickly established herself as a knowing chronicler of heartache and hardship whose means of expression is a consistent sense of unflinching honesty. Saving Country Music has opined about her ability to meet the gaping maw of the music business thusly. Call it the Tao of Jamie Lin Wilson, where some would allow the presence of 3 young children at home to stifle their musical pursuits. Jamie Lin Wilson uses the challenge of balancing motherhood and music as fuel and inspiration. Where so many artists these days call on the inherent unfairness of the music industry to blame everyone else for their lack of success, Jamie Lin worries more about taking advantage of any and all of the opportunities bestowed to her, big and small. I got a chance to jump on the phone with Jamie last week and hear about her journey so far. Jamie Lin Wilson, thanks so much for being a part of the Working Songwriter podcast. It seems to me like you got your start a little bit later than some folks with playing music. You didn't start playing music till college, but once you got there, you dove in feet first and ready to go. What did that look like when you got to school, and how did you end up on this musical path that you're on now?
Well, that is, I went to college for engineering, so I was there I was at Texas A&M, just kind of doing the college thing that you're supposed to do. And I knew that I could sing whenever I was little. I liked to sing, but I wasn't particularly poetic, or, I didn't know that was, I actually didn't even know it was a thing that existed. Like I sang songs without even thinking about where they came from at all until, I was in college. I was at Texas A&M, where there's a big, the Texas music thing was just starting. So people were coming through town, Bruce Robinson, Rodney Crowell, Jack Ingram, Charlie Robinson. There were a whole bunch of guys that would come through. And I remember going to some bar and seeing Susan Gibson play. And it ended up being people that I know now. It was Susan Gibson and Jack Saunders playing upright bass and Eleanor Whitmore on the fiddle. And I went, that's kind of cool. Like, I could maybe do that, get a guitar and do that. And then I went to see the Dixie Chicks, and Natalie Main stood out and played by herself, just an acoustic guitar by herself, and sang Cold Day in July. And I was like, I know I can sing that song. I could probably learn that on guitar. That might be fun. Just to have it, just to have something to do. And then a few weeks later, my cousin, who was with me at that show, and both those shows actually, and my mom got together and got me a guitar. So I was 19 and some change before I even touched one. And then how that, like, as soon as I figured out how to make a D chord, and then I went, bring, and I went, I'm making music. And it was like chills all, I went, wow, it was that easy, and ever since then, I just I learned how to play it in my room by myself without telling anybody. And then all of a sudden I never stopped doing it. I learned very quickly and very easily. So I took that as a good sign.
It's funny, you mentioned you're going to school for engineering. So on some level, you understood, like, well, for a building to get built or a plane to get built, you need someone designing it. But it's funny that it never even occurred to you. You could sit and sing these songs. It hadn't occurred to you that someone had to write that. I feel like a lot of music listeners are like that in general.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what makes me, pretty empathetic towards the people who don't really, now that I realize what songs I loved growing up, I always loved the album cuts. I always went towards the songs that were like a little off from the I mean, I love the hits too, obviously, but like when I was 10, I sang Outbound Plane at a talent show. You know, that's not a 10-year-old song. Like, and I go, oh, okay. Like I already liked those, you know? So that's interesting to me to go, okay, I didn't super love those hit songs, but I loved these that said something weird. But
Right.
yeah, I never even thought of somebody else was writing them. I thought George Strait wrote every song he ever sang. I did not understand why he was throwing all his dirty laundry out on
Right.
the air on radio for his kid to hear. I was like, he doesn't need to hear that you and your wife are having problems. You don't
Right.
need to
Right.
be
Right.
singing about that. You know, like it really bothered me a whole lot. But yeah, and I already knew Robert Earl Keen. I already knew, I already knew a lot of these people by the time I got a guitar, and I loved them.
Hmm.
I just had never considered writing.
Yeah. There is something really special about beginning writing when you're also just beginning to learn the medium, like, learning guitar and
Yeah.
learning that it's a thing, like, because you just end up, like you said, when you strum that D chord, it was like the heavens parted for a moment. And if you can bottle some of that fire that comes from that and put it into your songwriting, that's some potent stuff.
Right. And actually sometimes I wish that I still didn't know how it all worked, because
I know.
like my melodies and stuff were way better then. Like when I was writing songs, I didn't know how chord structure worked, and I didn't know what the 1 and the 4 and the 5 are, you
Right.
know? Like I was going, who cares? You sing this melody and then you play these chords, and then that's how it works.
Totally. I think I've faced the same problem as you have there as a songwriter. You get into it a couple decades, and how do you kind of keep that original beginner's mind? And sometimes I'll just try to fool myself by playing instruments that I don't even play. Just,
Yes.
do you know what I mean? Have you ever tried that
Yeah.
before?
Oh, yeah. I've written songs on mandolins. Like, I don't know how to play mandolin. I know how to play a few chords, but that's about it. Or different tunings,
Yes.
or even a different guitar. I used to come to Nashville to write for, like, whenever I was in the Trishas, we had a publishing deal where we came, to town once a month or whatever. And I stopped bringing my own guitar because even other people's guitars have other sounds in them. And I'd go, I'm just going to borrow one. And I'd call my friends, hey, can I just use one of your guitars this week? And
Totally.
it always worked. Like when you strum a chord in a different feeling guitar, other guitars have other songs in them, and that,
Yeah.
maybe let's use that trick again. Hold on.
Exactly. Even guitars just looking different. I feel like sometimes, like when it
Yeah.
looks different, you think of yourself as a different artist almost sometimes.
Right. Bring a black guitar to a songwriting session, you'll get a black guitar kind of song.
Yeah, exactly. Couldn't have put it better myself. So, how do you go from, hey, my cousin bought me a guitar because this is something that I'm kind of interested in, to, I mean, I know you played in a couple bands in College Station, right? And kind of got your
Right.
start there.
Yeah.
How did that evolution happen?
Well, it kind of went hand in hand with, the old young person, teenage drama. Like I broke up with my boyfriend, and then I went, you know what? You can keep all our friends. I will go make new ones. So I started going, and I ended up keeping those friends anyway. But that was like because he was like, but we have all the same friends. And I was like, I'll be fine. Like
Right.
you can hang out, they can help you through this, and I will be fine. So then I started making, I went to this, I found this open mic night, didn't even know that was something that existed. Happened to just walk by it and went, huh, walked in to the patio area. I started going back on those Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I started just going by myself and watching. And then eventually I made some friends that were doing it, and friends that were there just in the audience, and they somehow figured out that I knew how to play guitar a little bit. And then they were like, what else do you do? And they started like asking me, like, do you sing? You've written songs, haven't you? Like, and they started kind of prying me. And then once they figured out that I could, then they kind of took me and lifted me, like really encouraged me a lot. I was so afraid.
Mm.
And they're still my friends, and they still make music too. And so that is kind of what got me to where I was on stage reluctantly,
Mm.
very nervous with a red face staring at the ground, you know. But then one of the guys that was doing that was like, "Hey, do you want to come open for my band? Hey, do you want to come be in my band?" You know, started going, "I need a girl. I need a girl singer."
Mm.
He really loved Graham and Emmy Lou, so he was like, "I need an Emmy Lou. I need Stevie Nicks. Like, come over." And so I joined his band, and then we ended up being in the same band for 7 years. That band lasted a long time. That's what ended up being the Gougers.
And were you kind of doing a circuit in Texas, or were you just playing College Station, or what did those years look
At
like in that
at
band?
first, like the first couple years, I was still in college whenever I was still in college whenever I uh, started touring out of town. So
Hmm.
we would start doing Houston, Dallas, you know, just that kind of stuff. And then once we graduated, we started going to Oklahoma City and Tulsa and kind of getting out a little bit more. And then probably a couple years into it, we made a record that we actually toured. Like we sent it to Leslie Ruffet and she pitched it on the Americana charts. And then, you know, we were doing that thing. So that was, I guess, '07 whenever we put out what ended up being our last record. But that got us nationally. Then we toured for a few years nationally.
Do you remember a particular show once that kind of got going, where you showed up in a town that you hadn't been to before, and there were people that knew the tunes, and you realized something was actually going on?
We had something in, like, we would go a lot that happened in Colorado,
Mm.
where we went to Colorado and I went, whoa, somebody's singing along. You know, like I would see like little mouths moving in the crowd. And then I remember the Evening Muse. We sold out the Evening Muse
Yeah, in Charlotte.
in Charlotte. And I went, oh, and Eddie's Attic. So
Yeah.
in the same run, we had Eddie's Attic and the Evening Muse. And I went, people that are my heroes play these places. And now there's people here that know our songs, and you know, the Carolinas and Georgia, and they were always good to us. We ended up going on runs with Scott Miller,
Hmm.
and he really helped us a lot over there, and that was just a blast. But we did a lot of runs with Scott in that area, and then people started showing up. Knoxville was always really fun. Yeah,
Did you enjoy touring, like the process of touring?
yeah, I like it, and I still like it. It's different. I forget that I like it whenever I dread leaving, but now I have a whole ton of children, so it's a way different process. But I have always loved it. I like going to a different town every day and not knowing where. I mean, back then it was the not knowing where you're going to sleep thing.
Yeah.
You know what? I remember we did a tour with Jason Eady back then, who's been a friend forever. And I remember making fun of him because he already booked rooms in advance. Like, why would you book a room in advance? There's gonna be somebody at your show that will say they can sleep on their couch. You don't have to spend $150.
Oh man, no. See, I'm in Jason's camp there, man. From day one, even when I was making no money on the road, I was always like, dude, I'm not crashing on
Yeah,
the
I
road.
can't do it anymore, but I don't know. Maybe back then it was part of the adventure or something. You know, there was a lot of sleeping in the van.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
we almost,
$150 is $150 back then.
yeah,
You know what I mean? A lot of
yeah,
times you wouldn't even be making that at the gig. So, I mean,
yeah, for sure. Especially when you're with a band and you're all splitting it.
yeah,
You know, back then we were 4 or 5 people traveling together, splitting $150, like pooling all the money until the very end of the trip, and then going, okay, we each made $300 this trip. That was really good for
I
a few
know.
weeks.
That's why it's so important. It can be so important to start in your 20s because you need to have basically no overhead. I mean, if
For
you
sure.
start and you have a family, you're going to go home. If I were to come home to my wife after being gone for 2 weeks and I was like, here's $300, babe. I mean,
I know
that'd
it
be
would.
that.
I know. I was married at this time and still am somehow to the same guy. Uh, but he was, you know, in that sense, I don't know if this is going to be great to say or not, but in that sense, socially, it's really nice to be the woman in that. Like, I didn't have the pressure of
Mm.
society telling me that I needed to be the breadwinner.
Right.
Like he had a job, he had his own, like he was doing his own struggling self-employment business at that time.
Yeah.
But he was okay whenever he supported me through that,
Totally.
because it was all fine, and I didn't feel that pressure of going, how are we gonna make,
Totally.
or how are we gonna make the mortgage?
I mean, the real game changer, you're right, is the kids.
The
Is the kids
kids
thing.
is the game changer. Now I have to make sure that I am, whatever I'm doing is totally worth it to be gone for.
You really do. I found myself, I guess, so I have 3 kids now. And how many kids? You have more than that.
4.
You have
We have
4.
4. Yeah.
There you go. So we're both playing zone
Yeah,
defense. And,
for sure.
and it's like, sometimes I'll catch myself on the road, particularly when it's like not a show, or even if somehow it's not a show day, and you just be in a random town and you'll finish a FaceTime with the kids and you just be like, what the hell am I doing here?
What am I doing? I know, like, how, like, people keep going, wow, you're a long way from home. I bet that was a long drive. And I'm like, oh, I don't, and I feel like such a snot when I say this, but I don't mean it this way. But I'm like, oh, I don't drive it anymore. Like, if I drove from Texas to
Mm-mm.
Sacramento last week, that adds 2 days on either end. Like,
No,
I can't afford 2 days on either end.
it,
Time is worth more now than that $400 round trip plane ticket.
No, it totally is. And I just look at, if I can't make money by flying into a place, renting a car, and then flying home, it means that I'm not getting paid enough there and we're just not
Right.
going to do the gig.
Right. And I know, and it sounds so, whenever you're going, music is love and happiness, and, but also like 4 kids at home. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Well,
and there's power in that too. Like, I remember the day that I went, you know what? I am not going to do that. I am not going to play your $200 shitty bar gig, because I would rather have a night off than go and do that. Like, that hurts me. It hurts my heart
I know.
to have people eating pizza and, drinking pints while
I
I'm.
know. I'd rather come to your town and spend a night off not making $200 and watching Monday Night Football in the Red Roof Inn
Exactly.
than
And
I
having a
would
great time with
having a
positive
great,
memories
yes, than playing your $200 gig.
than playing your
But
200.
it's funny because there is that line, like there is a point in your career where you got to play those $200 gigs, and it,
Right. Well, that's what we were just saying earlier.
right,
You have to do those things, and thank God that was
yeah,
early,
yes,
because also I think that there is a real disconnect whenever people come in and hit really early,
hmm,
like their first record is a hit, and then all of a sudden they've passed over all of these crappy gigs, and they passed over having to sleep in the van, and they passed over having to hit every single tiny little public radio station through Oklahoma on their way
yep,
to wherever, just to get a little bit of publicity. Like, they skip that part, and then I don't they say they appreciate it. They say, that, like, yeah, I understand that I skipped over a lot, but you do not really understand.
I know,
Like, I'm
I know.
trying to tell you, you don't. And I feel sorry for you. Like, I feel bad for them, actually.
I do too. It means a lot more. I'm in the same position. I was talking to a club owner the other night when I was on the road, and you hear club owners say this a lot. When they're in smaller clubs, they always talk about acts that get big, and they always go, well, we get them on the way up, and then we get them on the way down.
Right.
And I was like, well, what does it mean that I've always just fucking been here?
Yeah, man.
I've never, I've just been
But
here. I'm not going anywhere, and I'm
but
not
then
coming
it
back.
but then there's those gigs like Knuckleheads, in Kansas City. I just played there last weekend, and Frank, who was giving me gigs whenever I did not need gigs,
Hmm.
whenever I did not deserve gigs, he was letting us come and open big shows, and then I went back and I played, and 130 people showed up, and I was like, man, Frank, look what we did. We did it. I beat
Right.
the guarantee, like, isn't that great? And he's like, man, I hope that you always come back. And I was like, well, the thing is that you have a room that fits 60 people. You have a room that, he's got like
Right.
four rooms in the one place. Like, we can all go there and never stop, because
Right.
he
Right. Right.
expanded to where
Yes.
there's a 500-seat room in there. I'll never fill that up.
Well, you never know. Um, so The Gougers, how did that kind of run its course? So, like, why did that band come to an end? I know most do, but how did that?
Yeah, it was just one of those things where we'd been doing it for so long, and I was ready to start having babies.
Yeah.
You know, I had been married for 5 years at that time, and went, hey, you know what? I think Roy and I think we're gonna start having babies, and it was not super well received in
Mm,
that. And also, we were kind of, he was going more indie rock, and I was going more not indie rock
hmm.
in our styles. You know, all of that was happening all at the same time, and then we just went, you know what? I think we can just call it a day, and uh, and see what happens from here.
Well, it
And at
seems
the
like what's
same,
happened has been great. So,
yeah, at the same time, the Trishas was kind of starting,
yeah, kind of
which,
describe that project a little bit to our listeners.
well, that was it was it was really interesting. You know, I was just coming out of a band, so I remember actually saying like, "Hey guys, I don't actually want to be in a band. Like, I just got out of a band. I don't want to. I don't want to be in a
Yeah.
band." And but we kind of all met each other because of a tribute show at a festival to Kevin Welch, and we were recruited to sing with Savannah. So Savannah Welch is Kevin's daughter, and she has a beautiful voice and can play guitar, and she's an actress. And but she was so nervous to sing a song for him that the festival promoters recruited other girls that were already going to be at the festival
Mm,
to back her up, to make her have confidence. So whenever we got together and started learning a couple songs, the moment, you know, that harmony hits, a four-part harmony goes, oh, wow, okay, well, that was great. Huh.
mm.
You know, and then all of a sudden, you know, it starts bubbling up. Like after we did 2 songs at that festival, we started getting gig offers, and we were like, we're not a band. We
Yeah.
just did these 2. We literally are a Kevin Welch tribute band. We know 2 songs, and that is it. And so we let it sit for a couple months and just tried to figure out if we liked each other.
Right.
That's a huge deal. We had just really met. I knew Kelly McWee from before, but I hadn't met the other ones really. And so we kind of started hanging out. We would rehearse a little bit, see if we had any other songs in common, and then about March, yeah, March, because it was South by. We had our first gig at South by Southwest, and then we decided to see. It was kind of, let's ride this until we're done riding. That was kind of our attitude from the beginning of like, okay, this will be fun for a little while. Let's do it. Let's see what happens.
Sure. It's funny, you can bang your head against a wall for years with like what you would consider to be your main project.
Right.
And then the moment that you start something new that you didn't even think was a thing, offers just start rolling in.
Man, I will be honest, I was mad about it. I
Yes.
was like, hold on. We have been trying to get into this, you know, thing for 7 years, and we've been denied and denied. And then all of a sudden, y'all are at like, we're not even actually that good. We don't even know what we're doing yet.
Right.
And
This
you're
isn't a
giving us
thing.
these things. Like, this
Right.
is not, let us have a few months and figure out what we're doing. Like, but people could see the potential, and I could see the potential.
Sure.
You know, most of the songs are really not great. We didn't have tempo yet. We didn't like having trouble staying in tune with each other. Like, it was didn't know how to work monitors. You
Yeah.
know, it was that kind of a thing. And then all of a sudden, we got a midnight residency at Saxon Pub just to practice playing in front of a PA and
Mhm.
playing in front of a couple people. And every week the crowd doubled.
Mhm.
So we had to stop doing it because we were like, we can't actually do this in front of people yet. So the
Right.
people keep coming. And it was a really frustrating situation for me because I was like, hold on, like my other band was actually really, really good.
Right.
Wait, you know. But it took us a second, but then we got there too. Like, I remember whenever we started feeling comfortable and everything was in a pocket and we could hit our parts, and then it got really fun and we
Yeah.
toured everywhere. and had a great time.
And how was that touring experience different than your first with the guy?
Oh, exceedingly different. It was all girls.
Right.
And, first of all, which it turns out whenever a bunch of girls who have been best friends with guys their whole lives get together in a band, it's pretty fun. Like, there wasn't any, cat. Everybody was like, oh, y'all are going to get in cat fights and whatever. And we're like, no, we're not. We're just going to hang out and like drink beer and sing songs just like the rest of you do.
Yeah.
And it's going to be great. And I can't downplay how much of a great experience that was for me, because in the other band, I was the small one. I was the one that was the least experienced. I was the, very much, you stay up here and sing your parts and look pretty. But in the Trishas, I was the most experienced. Kelly and I were the ones that had been on the road the most. And so that one kind of made us step up and have to be a leader. And that changed my entire stage presence. Whenever all of a sudden I was the one driving the ship for, at the beginning, like, a year or two in, everybody was driving the ship. But like at first I had to go, okay, here's how we're going to do it. And it really helped my confidence a lot. But even bigger than that, I did have babies.
Right.
And those girls, and I told them at the beginning, I was like, hey, here's the thing. I want to have babies. And I don't want to put that on the back burner anymore. And so they were like, cool, sounds great. And so I did. And I took those babies on the road. Like Joni, she's 11 now. We took her to Idaho at 6 weeks.
Wow.
I took my mom. We're like, all right, let's go. Come on. And I toured all while pregnant with her. And then with Maggie too. Then it was a 1.5-year-old baby on the road and pregnant. And then I had Maggie and we took the newborn. And in the meantime, Savannah had a kid. So then at some point we had 5 girls, 3 babies, and a tour manager in a van.
Oh boy.
And a nanny.
Oh boy. I can imagine taking a newborn on the road a lot more than I can imagine taking a 1.5-year-old on the road.
Well, in general, they start staying home for a couple days at a time whenever they, are about, a little over a year. As soon as they don't need their mama so much.
Yes. Yeah.
They stay home, for a little bit. But whenever I was gone for 2 weeks, I just go, you know what? Let's just go. And it was really interesting too. I started feeling really guilty about it because I would bring the babies back home and they would be a different kid than when they left.
Of course.
And Roy's like, whoa, how did that happen? You got teeth or whatever.
Right. No, I feel, well, so it sounds like there was like a ton of personal development there with the Trishas. What do you think you took away from it artistically? Sure. What did you learn as an artist from the experience?
Man, it was very acoustic. It was, I learned how to appreciate, I know that you interview Rhett Miller lately, and I remember telling people in interviews about the Trishas when they'd say, what's your style? I'm like, I read this interview with Rhett Miller one time where he says that style is defined by limitations. And that is exactly, we do every single possible thing we can with our feet and our hands and our voices. And then this is what it sounds like. None of us are lead players, but we all have good rhythm. I played a kick drum. Kelly played a tom, like with a mandolin slung across her chest, and there was a whole lot of percussion. So I learned how to do what you can with what you have, and it can still sound really great. And it was a really good. We tried to do that whole Tom Petty thing where you use an acoustic guitar to do the running down a dream. That's an acoustic guitar.
Yes.
That's not Mike Campbell ripping it.
Yes.
So we tried to do that kind of stuff where we highlight what we can do. I can't, play a solo, but I can go da-da-da-da-da and make it sound cool.
Right. Well, I can identify with it, because if style is limitations, then I have a lot of style, because I have a lot of limitations.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you use it to your advantage.
Are you stuck in a rut? Are you tired of listening to that Jimmy Buffett 20th Century Masters CD over and over again and need some new music? Are you sick of making hamburger helper beef stroganoff for dinner every night and you want something new to cook? What you are looking for, my friends, is the Enthusiast Digest. That's my monthly newsletter, which arrives in your inbox the first Sunday morning of every month, bursting with musical recommendations, poetry selections, recipes and cooking techniques for my favorite dishes, and items of general interest culled from the vast cesspool that is the internet. The Enthusiast Digest is free to subscribe to. If you dig the poetry that you hear on this show and the artists that you're hearing from, you'll dig the newsletter, because I approach it with the exact same sensibility of curation. Go to joepugmusic.com/newsletter today to sign up for free. That is joepugmusic.com/newsletter. It takes approximately 15 seconds to sign up for a free newsletter that will enrich the first Sunday of your month with a veritable cornucopia of new and delightful recommendations. That's the Enthusiast Digest, the first Sunday of every month. Sign up for free at joepugmusic.com/newsletter. As you've heard, family is a huge priority for Jamie. You might say it's the priority. She left her first band, the Gougers, to start a family, and she didn't let the initial success of the Trishas derail that value structure either. She has knowingly and willingly stepped back from professional opportunities for the good of her kids. It takes some perspective to put a value structure like that into place. One of the ways to get that perspective is to remind yourself how fleeting and how quick our individual lives really are. There's a wonderful poem by the Italian writer Giacomo Leopardi that gives us just that reminder. It's entitled "The Evening of the Holy Day." The night is soft and clear and no wind blows. The quiet moon stands over roofs and orchards, revealing from afar each peaceful hill. Beloved, now every alleyway is silent. At intervals along the balconies, the night-long lantern gleams. You are asleep, and gentle slumber now gathers about your quiet chamber, and no single care gnaws at your heart. You do not know at all, nor think that you have opened in my breast a very grievous wound. You are asleep, and I have come abroad now to salute this sky, whose aspect seems to be so gentle, and ancient nature, powerful over all, who has fashioned for me trouble. I deny all you hope to, she has said. Yes, even hope. Your eyes shall not be bright for any cause except for weeping. This was a festal day, and you were resting after its delights, and maybe, in your dreams, you still remember how many eyes took pleasure in your beauty, how many, too, pleased you. I find no place, not that I hoped it now, among your thoughts. Meantime, I ask how many years of life remain to me, and therefore here I cast myself upon the ground and cry and rage, O terrible days, even off our green youth. Alas, I hear not far along the road the lonely singing of a workman coming back to his poor home so late at night after the sports, and fiercely my heart aches, thinking how all this world passes away and leaves no trace. For look, the festival is over now, and ordinary day succeeds tomorrow. All things our race has known, time likewise bears away. Where now is the voice of the ancient peoples, the clamor of our ancestors who were renowned, and that great empire of Rome, the arms and the clash they made by land and sea. All is silence and peace. The world is still. There are no tidings now remained of them. Once in my boyhood, when so eagerly we would look forward to the holiday, finding it over, I lay upon my bed, wakeful and very unhappy. Late at night, a singing heard along the alleyways, little by little dying into the distance, even as this does now, gripped at my heart. So talk to me about, if you have a day set aside to write, what does that day look like? Like, how do you approach writing a song? How do you approach writing an album? Like, what does your creative process look like?
Well, that really depends on where I am, and well, physically, but
Physically?
also where I am in my life, in my day. Like, I can try to set a day apart whenever I'm at home, and then I end up doing the dishes and washing the clothes, doing all of the things. I have to like physically remove myself from any responsibility, first of all. And then I usually, I have, I don't have a lot of notebooks. I do have a lot of notebooks. They're not full. I have a lot of scraps of paper running around, to where recently I took them all and pasted them into one notebook so that I can go look back at my ideas. It's just like a collage of like lines. But I'll sit and work on a song for years sometimes. Like, I've got a few songs in my head right now that have been rolling around for so long that I get frustrated and then go, it's never going to get finished. And then one day the floodgate will open and it'll just all come out. And usually that starts with a guitar. Like, if I'm sitting down, or if I'm planning on writing, I'll start playing something on guitar first. And like we were saying earlier about trying to get out of your own style, I'll start in a key that I never write in. Like, I'll
Yeah,
go,
keys. Yeah, that's a
you know
good way
what?
too.
I don't ever write anything in E.
Yeah.
Let's see about that today. And then that'll all of a sudden spur something. And not that it gets finished, but it's at least an idea, and it's a melody, and it's a hook that can then marinate until it
Yes.
becomes something else later. Like, unless I'm writing with somebody else, I very rarely sit down and finish a song in a day.
Same.
Like, I can't do it. And I've heard people say that, like, if I don't finish a song in 3 hours, it's not worth anything. Like, well, I disagree with that, because I think it could have been better if you spent more than 3 hours on it.
Right. No, I agree. It's yeah, I've always been similar. I like to get a song about 75% of the way done, and then if I get a song 75% of the way done, I'm just like, cool, this is done.
This is
Basically,
done. I need some editing.
yeah, and also like that first 75%, it might as well be the first 99% in a way, because it's so hard to get that first 75%. I'm like, that last 25%.
The second verse is the hardest.
Yes.
Like, if I can get past the second verse,
Yes.
then I'm like, I just won. I just beat it.
That's it.
Beat the song.
If I can get past that, I honestly feel like I could finish the rest of the song while feeding
in
my
the shower.
Yes, yeah, like I could finish it at my son's soccer game on
right.
the
For sure. Like, as long as I can sit down and figure out most of it, like literally in the shower, I have finished so many songs, because you're in there just like the water's washing over you. You're like all brain empty, and then all of a sudden I go, oh, I got it. And then I like run out of the shower and go, completely work it out. Like, the last line will pop in, and then I go, all right, I got the last line. Now I just need to get there. And I just completely defeated this thing.
Totally. But how do you square that circle with the fact, though, you're a solo artist? You have to, I mean, just for business purposes, you got to have an album out from time to time. So if your process is sort of, you let the process itself kind of determine the
Yes.
timeline, like how do you fit that within a workable business model?
I decide to not have a workable business model.
Okay.
I I mean, I've thought about this so much. This is interesting that you asked this question because I have to square this away within my own brain that I will not force. Like right now, it maybe one day when my kids are a little older and I have less responsibility here at home and less responsibility on the road. Like if I was just gone for a week. I got back yesterday and like just now before I came in here, I was like sweeping the floor and dusting off the table and like folding laundry. And then I was like, oh, it's 9:25. I better go join this meeting,
Right.
you know? So until I have more time and more headspace here, I decided that I'm not going to give myself a hard time about it. I don't want to put out a record of mediocre songs just because I need to put out a record.
Hmm.
I won't do it. There's a lot of people, I mean, and I know that that sounds real like that. Those standards are to my own standards. So if other people think that my songs are mediocre, cool. But as long as I don't, then I will be um like I'll wait. I'll wait. I don't I don't feel like it. I have decided to not put that pressure on myself because if I try to go like I'm going to sit down and write every day, I'm going to write a song every day, then I will think that I'm the worst writer ever because they will not be good. And I don't want to think poorly about myself. I want to think that every once in a while I hit lightning,
Right. Right. Right.
instead.
It's funny. I mean, what I hear you saying there is that becoming a parent in some ways changed your artistic bar in some ways, like changed
It
you as an
did.
artist, you know?
It did for sure. I mean, it it has it has made, I it took a long time for me to start writing songs with being a parent and having a family in mind.
Hmm.
It took a long time, probably 3 years before I ever addressed the fact in a song that I have children.
Mm.
But and that's just because I didn't people kept saying that to me. Are you probably all you write about now is motherhood, right? And
Right.
go, no. Actually, to me it was too big. Like it was too big of a thing to put in 3.5 minutes, to put in this little, and I felt a lot of pressure about it. So of course, you know how I react to pressure. I say just no, no, this is not.
Yeah.
I refuse to accept your pressure. Thank you very much. But then finally, when I did, then I went, oh, I relate to this now.
Mm.
This is what I'm thinking. These are the things. The passage of time, the watching a kid see things for the first time. All of that completely changes your perspective. Whenever everybody says, oh man, it really does happen so fast. Like kids grow up so fast. You go, rah, 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 whatever. When you're the kid, everything is so slow.
Yeah.
But as you grow up, you go, oh man, that was actually true. And
Yes,
it's devastating.
it is.
Like it's
Yeah.
devastating, and so now that I have that perspective, like I can't shake it. So it's in, whether I'm talking about whether I'm it's just getting older, as you get older, the years get shorter and then all of a sudden you go, oh man, I guess this is what I'm thinking about now, and you can't help but put that in songs.
You were mentioning earlier that you really, when you do want to get something done, you do have to set aside time that is not
Yeah.
family stuff. And tell me if this strikes a chord with you at all. I have to do the same thing, but then the funny thing about songwriting is just because you sit down doesn't mean anything's going to
No,
come.
no,
And
not at
so
all.
I end up feeling a lot of guilt sometimes when I sit down in the writer's room and it's like I booked a babysitter or I have my folks
Right.
watching the kids or whatever, and nothing's coming. I just feel like a real waste of space. And I think, well, I should go back to the house and watch them, or I should go upstairs and grab the kids. But it's like, no, that's not how it works. Like if you give
I know.
yourself time, you just got to sit here with your feelings for a little
I'm
while.
just going to sit here for a second. I know. And I have a really hard time with it. Like, because it's not like a faucet that you can just turn on.
No,
You know, you don't go, oh, now that I'm here, I'll start thinking this way. Like, honestly, I'm thinking about it all the time.
right,
I think about it always. That doesn't mean that I have the headspace for it to come to fruition, for it to become anything that is worth it. Like that just means that I'll think of something and then I'll think of every cliche around it and go, no, 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 and no. But the general idea is good.
right.
This part's good. This melody is good. So just because I then go and sit down by myself doesn't mean that then I'm not going, I wonder if I need to go pick up somebody and take them to the dentist appointment or
Right.
whatever,
Right.
there's always, both things are happening at the same time.
Yes.
Always. It's just what you're making time for at the moment. And it's it's hard.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying, though, is that look,
Right.
like for me, and obviously it sounds like for you too, like family is my first priority, bar none, not a close second. But that being said, sometimes I can use it as when it's like, it's really not time. I have an hour and a half here that is not for family. It's to write a song.
Right.
It's an unassailable excuse to like, once the going gets hard with writing, to just be like, I'd be a really good dad if I left here right now and I did this.
Right. I know. The mom guilt thing is big. Dad guilt too, I'm sure. I've never had that, but
Well,
it's like, I know and there's a whole other thing of like leaving home. I say this sometimes at my shows that like, whenever most people leave for work, like if most moms have to work outside the home or like outside of town or leave on a work trip, they're like, I really don't want to go to this conference. I would rather be here with you. And they mean it.
mhm.
But me, I'm like, I get to go like drink beer and play songs with my friends. So like, I can't be like, yeah, my job really sucks and I hate it.
Can't lie about
But
that.
I have to. Like,
Yep.
I did have to stop saying I'm going to go play a show.
Yeah.
Mama has to go play a show because they don't understand playing. They're like,
Right.
hold on, you're going to play and I would like to come with you.
Right.
Is there a slide involved? I'm like, no slides. Just there's some drums and
That's about it.
a
Yeah.
bar and really loud speakers.
You were joking around earlier by saying like, well, I've made the conscious decision to not have, a career that works in a certain way. But
Right.
I think that's a little glib because you've had three different projects that have worked, and you are a parent who's making a living. You're a
Right.
nationally known artist. You own your own business doing this stuff. So, I mean, clearly, you know
There's
what
just
they're
no
doing.
real plan.
Sure.
That's the thing. Like most people, I really do need one, because if I had a plan, then I could probably get a manager, and I could probably, but anytime people start asking me important questions like that, I'm like, nope, don't ask me those things. I don't want your pressure.
Yeah.
Go away. And then no. Because I don't have those answers. I don't have the when are you going to make a new record answer. And
Right.
I don't feel like, it's not that I'm not thinking about it. It's not that I don't want it. Would I love for a new record to land in my lap? Sure. Probably I'm going to have to book some studio time before the songs are finished, like I did last time. And then like they come out,
Right. Right. Well, where did you
but
get this ability to? I mean, it's very against the grain what you're talking about, and most artists don't operate that way. Like, what is it about the way that you were brought up that you have the ability to just to go about things in such a singular way?
I think that, I don't know. I try not to put expectations on myself. I don't, people want most people in this business, I have figured out talking to people, like, want to be famous, or
Mhm.
they want to have, they want to be a star or something. And that is something that I actually don't want.
Mm.
And that is not something that, like, business people want to hear. Like, they don't want to go, oh, I'll help you not be a star. We can not make money together.
Right, right.
So, but I think that it's just something like that. Like, I don't have the driving ambition for success. Like, to me, success is being able to make a living doing this. I am successful because I have figured out how to pay for my kids' school and buy all of their groceries and still have some money in the bank and be able to do the thing that I love to do. That to me, like, I'm done. I'm good. So if I die tomorrow, I had a successful career, in my opinion. And also, if I die tomorrow, if that's the last record I ever make, I want every record that I make for me to be okay with that being the last record I ever make. So I don't want to go, well, she was really great up until she started putting out a record every 2 years.
Right.
Like, there's some people that put out 3 records in a year. I'm like, that would have been one really great record
Right.
if you
Right.
would just, like, give yourself some B-sides.
Well, I really
So
like your
I just,
style.
yeah.
That's a good one. I like your style, dude. That's good.
I don't know. And I know that sounds like people get frustrated with me and don't believe me, but I'm like, if you don't believe me, then just, like, look at my track record.
Right.
Like, come listen to my voice memos and tell me how many songs I have that I haven't recorded.
It's funny, you'd say that so many people are going for the fame thing, because that's got to be a really frustrating place to be for them, because no one can really control who you can't just, like, work hard enough and it's a linear line to being famous. Like, you have to have a baseline of talent. And then after that, I mean, in my experience and from what I've seen, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. Whereas if you just want to build a following that supports you and allows you to pay your mortgage and put your kids through school,
Right.
that's a thing. Again, that does take a baseline of talent, but that's a thing that you can, in a linear way, work towards and see gains from. And it just seems like a saner way of living life at a certain point.
And it makes me feel less than. Whenever I see somebody that is more successful, than I am, then I go, they did different things. They have different goals. Their measure of success is different than me. And also, a lot of times, people who dig that music aren't going to dig mine anyway. So that is actually not a thing.
Right.
Like, if they have more people, that's because more people have heard it. I don't know. Like, more people, they like their personality. I don't know. I just go, it's all cool. I'm doing this thing and they're doing that thing.
Yes.
It's a very, like, I know that it sounds like I'm just being really zen about the whole thing. And because sometimes it's not. Sometimes I go, you know what? Like, I was thinking about it, how I just listened to your new EP this morning.
Thank
which
you.
is great.
Thanks.
And then I was like, why have I not listened to this yet? And then I remembered that I know how to control my own emotions. And I go, that's because you don't listen to new music, because then you get jealous. And I don't like feeling that way.
I know. Well, it's a strange thing. It's a very strange
So,
thing.
like, it's not that I'm sitting here going, I'm so in control, because I do go, no, I don't feel like listening to that person's new record, because then I'm going to feel like I need to do that, and I don't need to do that right now.
Right. 100%. Well,
But yours is really great, by the way.
thank you very much. And I'm glad that you are doing what you're doing. I really appreciate you coming on to the show. This week's show is brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built by musicians and for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website for your music. Use promo code TWS, the initials of our podcast, TWS, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. Lin Wilson's latest album is entitled Jumping Over Rocks, available everywhere music is sold or streamed. If before we meet again you sit down to write, please remember, an expensive drug habit is not a song, a compelling Instagram account is not a song, and most importantly, reverb is not a song. So let all that take care of itself, and for you, just keep your eye on the song.